Hi there, my name is Benedetta and welcome to Tender is a Read. This video is one that has actually been highly requested to me over on my Instagram page when I've asked you guys what you wanted to see, and it is all about my personal tips and tricks to read more books. Mind you, I don't want to pretend that I'm some reading prodigy. In fact, I'm not. However, in 2022, I did read 100 books, which was very, very exciting for me. Now, the thing is, before March 2021, I had not read a single book in about 5 years. I was, of course, one of those bookish kids growing up who loved reading, so there was a basis for my renewed interest. However, having been sucked into a screen as a teenager and later as a young adult in academia, I just didn't really think there was room for reading for pleasure in my life. And yet, turns out there was. In this video, I will be sharing my reading technique as well as the little tips that have helped me rediscover my love for books. Okay, so I think this is the biggest sort of part of my overarching method, and that is that I like to section my books before I start reading them. Ever since I was a child, I always like to go into a book and sort of scan it first to see how many chapters or how many pages it has, and sort of section it in a way that helps me visualize how long it will take me to read that book. In particular, my old method as a child, I don't remember all the details of it, but I do know that I went by chapters. So I would set a goal every night when I would read to finish a certain number of chapters. But my new method is actually a little bit more mental, and I beg you to bear with me on this one. I promise it will make a little bit of sense. So basically what I do is divide a book into chunks of 50 pages. And the idea is that in each sitting, every time I open a book, I aim to read 50 pages in one go. This is absolutely arbitrary, but 50 has worked for me so far. Now, because I care about chapters, I will never end, my reading on page 50 if it's in the middle of a chapter. I will always try to approximate in excess. So I'll try to get to page 55 or 60, whatever it is. But the next time, I will still aim to get to 100 because those 50 pages chunks are fixed. Nevertheless, if I don't reach that number, I'll still be happy. It just means that if I stop at page 40 because I simply don't have time that day, the following sitting I'll aim to arrive to 100. If that makes sense. I think this method has really helped me break down books and know exactly, how much time I have to commit to read a certain book. It's also a way to set a goal every time I open a book so that I don't get too distracted by my surroundings. And the goal could be anything you want. It could easily be 10 pages, 20. It's up to you. But I just think that, if you need to have that little thing to look forward to when you do whatever activity, that's a method that has worked for me. Okay, I know that saying read short books in order to read more books is a total cop-out, I understand, but hear me out. So actually last year, when it came to mid-December, I had read about 92 or 93 books, right? And I really wanted to get to my goal of 100. And so therefore, I just decided to read a lot of short Shakespeare plays. Now, just because, they are under 200 pages, they're not less of a book. You certainly wouldn't judge me for reading Shakespeare, would you? It's still literature. Short books are an amazing way to just bulk up your reading numbers, and it's also something that, as I've said in my guide for beginners getting into classics, I think short books are just great because of the fact that they're usually fast-paced and don't run the risk of boring you or even being daunting, unlike some longer books. When I tell you that listening to audiobooks has changed my life, this is one of those life hacks that actually works. So I mostly listen to audiobooks at home while I do my chores. So if I'm washing dishes or cleaning around the house. And it's just so amazing because now I literally look forward to those boring chores because it is an opportunity to read more books. What used to be a waste of time is now super productive. And you can interpret that whichever way you want. It works both ways. And yes, obviously it does take a degree of multitasking ability, but it doesn't bother me too much as long as essentially the other task that I'm doing while I'm listening is quite mindless and, you know, the reading doesn't distract me too much in a way that could be potentially dangerous. So the way I listen to audiobooks is always on double speed. I find that a lot of readers just have a very slow rhythm in their voice, and I prefer to just adjust it. Since I mostly read classics that are in the public domain, I get all of my audiobooks from YouTube. They're all available. I've actually never spent a penny on audiobooks, and it's also super practical because you don't have to, I don't know, download a third-party app or anything like that. Everything is on YouTube, something that you use every day anyway, and it's just, again, super simple and free. I know that of course that's not the same with new books. However, everybody's aware of the various providers that do not sponsor me, so will not get mentioned today, where you can find audiobooks, and I believe that the price is on par with a physical book, so you know, that's something that you may be interested in looking into. Joining a buddy read or book club is actually the way that I got back into reading myself. My two dear friends told me that they were going to read Little Women together, and I thought, you know what? Actually, I would like to do that, even though I've not touched a book in forever, but I love Little Women and it would be fun to sort of do it together. And that's how I started reading again, and I owe it to them 100%. So buddy reads are, in my experience, more informal than book clubs. It's just the idea that you get a friend and you read a book together, and it can be, you know, however many friends that you want. I personally prefer this option because having a smaller pool of people helps me always being in control of the titles that get chosen. So it's a great way to both get companionship for reads that for some reason I haven't wanted to read alone, or the way to get encouraged to discover titles that you may have overlooked, but still be able to, you know, make sure that what you're reading is something that you like. I also find that buddy reads, or at least the way I've done them, they're quite relaxed as opposed to book clubs that sometimes have a bit of a schedule. For us, is just a very laid back experience where it can fit everybody's lifestyle very easily. But that is not to discredit book clubs, because of course they are amazing as well. They are the blueprint. Book clubs are actually something that I've never taken part of, but I am very much aware of a lot of people who love book clubs because they're a great opportunity to meet new people. There are a lot of book clubs these days on BookTube and Bookstagram that can connect you to people all over the world and I see a lot of people loving them. So I would definitely recommend the experience of a book club or a buddy read is that of going through a book together, being able to confront each other, being able to learn new perspectives, and it just makes the experience of reading, which is I think one that is quite solitary, into a social activity. So it's something that I would highly recommend if you're wanting to get into reading more. Reading on commutes is actually a new one for me. As somebody who has been plagued with awful, terrible motion sickness since I was a child, this is a new sort of superpower that I've developed, and I'm so grateful. So I can't even read the name of a song on the screen in a car. I will be sick. But I have found that on more stable means of transportation, it's quite easy to actually read. So I love reading on planes in particular, but it goes the same with trains. When you're in a confined place, you just have to sit down and do nothing for hours on end. It's just so cool to have a book because it helps you pass the time. What I do when I travel on planes usually is bring a book that I think I can finish in the journey, and that becomes a race against time, and it keeps me so entertained and not bored whatsoever, which, you know, on a 3-hour flight is a realistic risk. So literally since October, since I started my job and I started to have a commute of about 2 hours twice a week on a train, I've read so much. I totally credit all of my gains when it comes to reading on that. It has just been the best place to actually concentrate on nothing but the book, and I don't know, I would highly recommend if you don't do it already. But also, just to remember my fellow motion sickness boys and girls and everything in between, audiobooks once again come in handy for this. If I start feeling a little bit ill on a train for some reason, I just close my book and I put on the audiobook, and it does not run the risk of making you ill. So tracking the books I read has been a great way to motivate me to read. I have seen so many people online who are actually so gifted and make all these amazing reading journals which are just awe-inspiring, and they share them on Instagram and they obviously have thousands of likes. That's not me. I tried to make a reading journal and I just failed miserably. I do have like an Excel spreadsheet where I try to keep track of all my books, but what I use on a day-to-day basis is actually a reading tracker app. The one that I like is called the StoryGraph, and I actually appreciate it a lot because of the fact that it sort of creates pie charts and graphs, putting together all the data collected from the books that you read, so it can tell you what sort of genres you read the most, what authors, books that you like the most in terms of pacing, in terms of page numbers. Just like a fun way to find out more about your reading habits. On top of that, of course, you can do the same things that you can do on other apps similar to it. So you can add friends and see what they read, you can review books, and you can set a goal for yourself. Now, setting a goal is something that I have started doing. So my first year doing it in 2021, I set a goal of 30 books and I actually read 75. And then in 2022, I decided to set a goal of 76 books. And then I read 100 in the end. And this year for 2023, my goal is 101. So you see what I've done there. I don't even know that I'll meet it this year. It is an ambitious goal considering the pace that I'm going at right now. But nevertheless, I find goals helpful to me. On the other hand, I do think that some people may get a little bit anxious about meeting this goal, and I would never encourage that. Remember to just set a goal that feels manageable to you and not something that is going to become off-putting in your reading. And ultimately, reading more books is just about fun. Once again, it should never become a chore. Another cool thing about the StoryGraph, which is, by the way, not sponsoring this video whatsoever, I genuinely use this, but they can help you track reading streaks. So every day you can log however many pages you've read, and it basically keeps you going with a streak, creating a habit. I've actually tried it for one of their January challenges like last year, and that month remains one of the months that I've read the most. It may be something that is healthy motivation, so something to look into in my opinion. One of the ultimate game changers for me has been Bookstagram. So obviously I do have an Instagram account where I talk about books on Bookstagram, which is called Tender is the Read, just like this channel. And also Bookstagram is just the Instagram version of this bookish corner of the internet. It also exists on YouTube called BookTube or on TikTok called BookTok. The idea is that it's a great way to connect with other people who read a lot and be able to engage with a community of people interested in the same things as you. I would encourage anybody to open a Bookstagram. It is a very wholesome community. However, I will say for a long time I was actually just a lurker with my personal Instagram profile. My Explorer page would be filled with cute photos of books, and it was actually a way for me to find entire subgenres like dark academia or mythology retellings, stuff that sort of like becomes viral on social media. But I know that I would never have found just in real life by going to a bookstore or, you know, talking to the people I know. Bookstagram is amazing whether you participate or whether you just watch. It's definitely great inspiration to see bookish content across your social media, because hopefully it's going to be a good reminder to put your phone down and open a book. This tip is a more pragmatic one. Save your money by buying books secondhand. Books are really expensive these days and they can easily feel like an unnecessary luxury. So shopping secondhand at your local charity shop or even online is a great way to save your money if you, like me, kind of need to have a physical copy of what you're reading. I mostly go to charity shops in my town, and otherwise I shop on eBay or specialized websites like World world of books. So when I go to a charity shop, I just open myself up to whatever possibility, whatever I see. I never know what I'll find, and oftentimes, especially in secondhand bookstores, you'll see a great turnover of titles and you can get inspired. Whereas on the internet, I find it very convenient because I'm able to retrieve editions that I have a specific interest in, but perhaps they are out of print or they are not available in my country as new books. Like for example, my Barnes & Noble classics that you can see there that are just not available in the UK. I've purchased all of them besides one that I bought in the US on eBay or World of Books for like £2 or something like that. And it's just been a great way to find titles that wouldn't otherwise be available for me and find them cheap. Naturally, on the same line of saving money, of course, I want to give a shout out to public libraries. Now, personally, libraries don't really fit my reading style and my lifestyle, so it's not something that I take advantage of, but it's a great way to save money and discover so many different books. Also, one final frugal tip is that classic books are all available in the public domain. So that means that they're all available online. Now, once again, this is not something I take advantage of, but I know friends who do. And if you have a Kindle or if you have, a tablet, a computer, a phone, you can easily access books for free. So something to bear in mind. Now, on the totally opposite side of the spectrum compared to the previous tip is to create a collection of books that you like the aesthetic of. If you have the ability to do so, being able to splurge on book editions that you really like may be a motivation to read more. Let's be honest, judging a book by its cover is a common practice and it's nothing to be mad about. I have a few collections that I like to curate and expand. First off, my Canterbury classics over there, which are not too expensive either. And I just love all the colors, and I do aim to have the entire rainbow one day, or a girl can dream at least. I also have some collector editions like the Canterbury classics, leather-bound classics behind me, which are absolutely beautiful. I also have books that are a bit more cheap and easy to find secondhand that I collect, like the Oxford World classics with the white spines, or the Barnes & Noble paperback classics that I've got over there and I've already mentioned. And once again, literally the way they look, these beautiful colors, feel like such great motivation for me to read them. I don't know, I know that I'm extremely aesthetically motivated. I have always been since I was a child, so I know to cater to my own tastes in order to constantly motivate myself to read and keep enjoying it. By the way, if you want to see a video where I compare and contrast and sort of show you the inside of all these different editions of classics that I collect, let me know. I have tried quite a few different editions and I would love to, give you a sneak peek if you're interested in curating a collection. Okay, so those are my 9 tips to reading more books, or how I managed to read 100 books in a year. I hope you find these helpful. If you have any personal tip that I've not mentioned and you'd like to share, please do so in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!